Hello, haven't done one of these for a while. As you can probably still hear, the voice has been really bad, okay? It went completely a couple of weeks ago, which kind of worryingly was the very first night of the tour. So obviously I've been desperately trying to conserve it when I'm not on stage. So that's made it difficult to do Patreon stuff because it normally involves either speaking or singing. But I think I've got enough left in the tank to do one of these. We haven't done one of these for a while, so let's have a nerdy one. Now, those of you with tellies will have noticed that over on HBO and Sky Atlantic, we are back in Westeros with House of the Dragon, and over on Amazon Prime, we are back in Middle-earth with Rings of Power. So, given that it's all swords and armour again, I thought, for no real reason, here are my 5 favourite swords in fantasy film and TV. Now, before we go on, I did say fantasy. We're not doing science fiction. There will be no lightsabers or batlets. Also, I don't want to do swords from historical fiction, so there will be no Braveheart Claymore, because that film is in no way a fantasy. But since we appear to be at least nominally in Scotland, let's start with number 5, the White Dragon Katana from Highlander. Katanas are probably the sexiest of all the real-world swords, and this is a particular beauty with that white ivory dragon hilt. It also, given that it's in a fantasy movie, has an enjoyably preposterous backstory, being apparently invented by some lone Japanese swordsmith who invented 440 tang steel 1,000 years before anybody else and just didn't bother telling anyone. But it does end up becoming inherited and becoming the signature weapon of my clansman Connor MacLeod, so it's got to be in the list. Number 4, the Atlantean sword from Conan the Destroyer. Okay, how many of you gave a massive cheer when this turned up for no reason whatsoever at the end of the last series of Stranger Things? In fact, how many of you gave such a massive cheer, yay, Chief Hopper's got the Conan sword, that at no point did it even occur to you to ask, what was the Conan sword doing in a Russian prisoner camp? Number 3, we have Sting from Lord of the Rings. Now, there are lots of swords in Lord of the Rings. Lots of swords in Lord of the Rings have stories and names. I decided to go with Sting just because I love the design they gave it in the movie. It's that lovely, curvy, elvish design. And also the fact that it lights up blue in the presence of evil was probably an influence on the lightsabers. Number 2, we have Longclaw from Game of Thrones. One of my favourite bits of the Game of Thrones lore is Valyrian steel, this fantastic ancient metal that is indestructible and nobody can make it anymore because it involves smelting with dragons. So dotted throughout the story are these ancient Valyrian swords, and they've all got a name and most of them have got a history, and this is the best one. I like its little tragic backstory that, it was meant to go to Safren's but he disgraced the Mormonts, so it gets given to Jon. And then because Jon, I guess I should say spoiler warning, but fuck it, kind of becomes the de facto hero of the story from season 4 onwards, that means that Longclaw is present at all the big battles. And it's also Longclaw that establishes that Valyrian steel kills White Walkers. For name number 1, quick honourable mention, Excalibur from Excalibur. Now, you can't really do a list like this and not at least allude to Excalibur because it is the OG magical sword. But in its most faithful depiction in the movie Excalibur, it's actually a fairly unremarkable looking thing, as I imagine it probably would have been had it existed. But anyway, my favourite, my number 1 is the Mind Sword from Hawk the Slayer. Why are you looking so surprised? Did you not see my video about Hawk the Slayer? Did I not say that Hawk the Slayer is the only movie I know in which the leading man is less charismatic than his own sword? But look at it. It's magnificent. It's wonderful. It's got that great green glowing orb in the hilt. There's that wonderful scene where the glowing orb is installed in the hilt, and the hilt momentarily becomes a tight close-up of a guy with a marigold glove sprayed silver as it... And then it flies into Hawk's hand at his thinking about it. I think he's thinking. It's impossible to tell. The man's face never moves. But the Mind Sword, it's wonderful. It's my favourite sword in the history of movies. All right, I'm sure a lot of you will have some fairly strident opinions on this. I look forward to hearing them.
Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please hit like and share. If you'd like to see more, please hit subscribe. And if you'd like to help me make more, please visit patreon.com/MitchBen.